Welcome back to Power Electronics Labs. Today we're going to look at Lab 2, Linear Power Supply. We're going to look at the purpose of this lab, the circuit and principle, and then we're going to build prototypes, and then we're going to test our prototype for results. Let's dive into the purpose. The purpose of this lab is to build and test a linear power supply. So our input is going to be a wall outlet, so a standard 120 volts AC. And we're going to have two outputs, a DC supply 1 of 15 volts and a DC supply 2 of 5 volts. Next, let's take a look at circuit and principle. So here's a schematic of our circuit. Here's our principle. So we're going to have a transformer just going to step down a 120 volts AC to 16 volts AC. And then we're going to have a rectifier bridge convert AC to DC. And then we're going to have capacitors to filter and smooth out our DC output to a constant straight line. And then we're going to have voltage regulators with a stable constant output of 15 volts and 5 volts. Now let's move on to building our prototype. So here are the components. We have a transformer, a PCB or printed circuit board, a terminal, a rectifier bridge, 3 capacitors, a 15 volt regulator, and a 5 volt regulator, 2 LEDs, and 2 resistors. One of your resistors will be 1K, the other will be 5K. Now let's move on to building the prototype. You're going to want to solder your components on in this order. So your 2 SMD resistors first, or surface mount resistors first, and then your terminal, and then your rectifier bridge. And we're going to take a break to capture input waveforms. So you're going to want to connect the output wires of your transformer to your terminal. You're going to plug in your transformer, and you're going to capture this waveform at TP or test point 1. And we want to capture these waveforms before we put on the capacitors. After we capture our waveforms, we're going to want to unplug our transformer, and then we can move on. After we capture our waveforms, we want to solder on our capacitors, and then our 2 LEDs, and then the 2 voltage regulators. Now that we've built our prototype, let's test it for results. So to power up our prototype, we're going to connect the 2 output wires of our transformer to the terminal, and then plug in our transformer into our wall outlet, so a standard 120 volts AC. After that, the 2 LED lights should light up. Now we're going to take a look at the output of our transformer. We're going to be using an oscilloscope to look at waveforms. We're going to capture this waveform at the terminal. We should see an AC voltage of 16 volts AC. After that, we're going to take a look at the output of our rectifier. We're going to capture that at TP1 or test point 1. Before adding capacitors, we should be able to see the ripples of our DC voltage. After adding capacitors, we should be able to see a straight line. Now we're going to measure the output of our voltage regulators. So here is the test point where we'll see 15 volts. Here's the test point for 5 volts. We can see that we get two straight constant outputs, one of 15 volts and the other of 5. And after that, we're done. Thanks for watching.